Hello dear viewers, I'm Nova, and you're watching Nova Briefcase Channel. In 1843, the German philosopher Karl Marx, one of the most influential figures in modern history, wrote his famous phrase, "Religion is the opium of the people." Marx believed that God was a creation of the people, God forbid, and that religions were nothing more than a tool for rulers and the wealthy to pacify the poor, making them endure their suffering and preventing them from revolting against their leaders. That's why Marx convinced that getting rid of religion was a duty for people if they wanted to liberate themselves from the oppression of capitalism. For Marx, religion was an obstacle to his communist revolution, which was supposed to create equality between the rich and the poor. And in 1917, this barrier was broken with the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, where the leader Vladimir Lenin followed in Marx's footsteps, transforming Russia into a communist state and an atheist nation. An atheist state, unlike a secular state, enforces the prohibition of religious practices, seizes religious properties and institutions, and the promotion of anti-religious education. In the 1920s, the Soviet Union had something called the League of Militant Atheists. They had publications, held conferences, and openly spread atheistic propaganda. Is this for real? Absolutely. By 1941, this movement had 3.5 million members. The Soviet Union was like that. Thousands were imprisoned or killed because they embraced and spread religious beliefs. Just look at the term military atheism. It's terrifying in itself. This was what led them to kill thousands of Christians and Muslims. And it wasn't just religious people who were victims. Even the week itself wasn't spared. They cut a day out of it. For a period, the Soviet calendar had only 6 days, simply to defy the Christian Gregorian calendar. Gradually, communist ideology began to spread, and soon there were Chinese communists. Chinese atheists were even more radical, and their goal was also to eliminate religion. Under the leadership of the Chinese leader Mao Zedong, places of worship were demolished, religious books were burned, and worshippers were persecuted. China transformed into an atheist state, and to this day, it remains the largest country in the world with a population of people without religion. Anyone who belongs to the Red Party, the Communist Party that rules China, is expected to be an atheist, according to Chinese President Xi Jinping. And up to now, the hostility against religion hasn't been limited to Buddhism. According to activists, 1,700 churches had their crosses destroyed in the eastern region of China. According to a Reuters report, in the Chinese city of Xinjiang, Muslim men are forbidden from having beards, and women are not allowed to wear hijabs in public places. They are even prohibited from fasting during the month of Ramadan. According to a Gallup International report, the percentage of atheists in China is 67%. That's an enormous figure. 67% in China means about 1 billion Chinese people identify as atheists. What I'm trying to tell you, dear subscriber, is that China is doing everything it can to remove the concept of God from the minds of its citizens. The God who holds people accountable for their actions, judges them, punishes sins, and rewards good deeds. And listen to this, they want to create a model of God. What? What? Yes, you heard me right. What? They want to create a model of a God who observes actions, evaluates them, and then holds the perpetrators accountable. There's no doubt that China is manufacturing almost everything today, and its products are flooding the world. Shoes, phones, air conditioners, you name it. There's a city in China called Shenzhen, bordering Hong Kong, with a population of about 14 million residents, and its economy is roughly $450 billion, which is larger than the economies of several countries, possibly even larger than the combined economies of multiple third-world countries. 90% of the world's devices likely contain a part made in Shenzhen, just to give you an idea of how important this city is in the hardware world. In 1978, when Deng Xiaoping visited Thailand and Singapore, he realized the need for China to open up to the world and become a productive and exporting country. And indeed, China became the world's factory. Made in China became a punchline. China has become the largest exporter in the world, with exports totaling around $3.9 trillion, surpassing the US, whose exports amount to $2.1 trillion. This means that China's exports are almost double those of the United States. reflecting China's economic strength and its domination of a significant portion of the global export market. So yes, China has truly done everything and exported everything. The only thing left is for it to have a god, and it will redefine our concept of the modern state. The idea is very simple. The idea is that we spend a lot of time on our devices, whether it's a phone or a computer, and everything we do is recorded. Google, Instagram, TikTok, Amazon, PayPal, Uber, MyFitnessPal, ChatGPT, Tinder, and countless other platforms that provide services in exchange for taking information from you. They know an enormous amount about us. This should ring a bell in your mind. Big data. They collect a vast amount of data about us. Your search history on a particular day, your purchases, your rides. This is a known fact and happens all the time. Everything you do is recorded, and you can even browse through it. These companies either keep this information for themselves or sell it to advertisers. But there isn't a concept of evaluating users based on this information. No system that counts your bad and good deeds. At least, not openly. We don't know what goes on behind the scenes. But in China, what's happening is that they're collecting this information about citizens and using it to come up with a social rating. What? The Chinese government has started working with 8 major companies to gather information and give citizens a social score that determines how much trust people, banks, and the government have in them. Can you imagine that? Can you? Every person gets a score, and based on it, they are approved or rejected for a bank loan, passport application, a job interview, or even if they qualify to rent and live in an apartment in a fancy neighborhood. This isn't some futuristic vision for 2050 or something. No, this started in 2009 as an experiment in certain regions and was optional. Now, it's mandatory for everyone. And what's mandatory in China is literally mandatory. In 2017, the Chinese government banned 6 million citizens from flying due to this system. 1.5 million citizens were banned from taking trains because of social misdeeds. China is a centralized state with strict control over information. WeChat, a Chinese social media and payment app used by over 1 billion people, is an example of this. If a Chinese citizen tries to send a message with the words Tiananmen Square to a friend, the message likely won't go through, just to give you an idea of the level of censorship. The company that created WeChat is one of the companies cooperating with the Chinese government in this system. Similarly, AliExpress, which is like Amazon in China, rates you based on your purchases. For example, if you buy diapers, it means you're a responsible parent, and you'll get a positive point that increases your score. But if you're an adult and buy games, you're likely considered an irresponsible person who wastes time, and you'll get a negative point that decreases your score. Your score becomes your heaven, offering you easier processes, or your hell, slowing down services. And your evaluation is not limited to just your online activity. Surveillance cameras are found in almost every corner of China, equipped with facial recognition technology and artificial intelligence to monitor and evaluate public activities and behaviors. Can you imagine the irony in all of this? A government that's supposed to be communist is collaborating with companies that are supposed to be capitalist to create a model of God for an atheist state. China has made everything and copied everything. China is creating a post-modern state where the state itself becomes God. The social credit system doesn't just affect your life, it impacts your family and friends as well. Your social circle might avoid interacting with you out of fear that your actions could negatively affect their own scores. For instance, you might find it difficult to form new relationships. A girl might reject you based on your low rating, or conversely, if your score is high, people might be attracted to you not because they care about you, but because they want to benefit from associating with you. It's like the new gold diggers. It's exactly like we saw in the 8th episode of the brilliant British series Black Mirror in the episode Nosedive, which is the first episode of the 3rd season. One article described it as gamified obedience. In other words, there's now a process of gamification for citizens. Citizens have become part of a game where the most important thing is to achieve the scores set by the government. Imagine that. About 1.42 billion people have become part of a game. In conclusion, my dear subscriber, because I've gone on a bit, we need to realize that we are in a phase of world changing. We're moving from a tangible physical world that we call reality to a world with less physical tangibility, which we call digital. This digital world records almost everything, and if the Chinese experience is applied universally, it will classify our behaviors as right or wrong. Your actions are recorded to evaluate you and give you a score, like a grade, a number that controls the course of your life. Terrifying, isn't it? Imagine having a number that represents you in front of people and your government, without considering any factors that explain why you got that number. This makes us think. I can't say whether this is good or bad because these are just tools. We already experience similar things in our lives, like our grades in school, something like a grade point average, GPA, and our credit scores at banks that determine our borrowing ability. So, everyone should have an idea of where life might be heading, and the key word here is big data. If you enjoyed the video, help boost my rating by commenting, liking, and subscribing, and share the video with your social circles so the benefits can spread. Your interaction increases my points and helps me bring you more great content. Goodbye.